Hey guys, Anthony here. We changed the name of the channel from Mobile Jiu-Jitsu to MMA Nerd because Mobile Jiu-Jitsu is the name of my private jiu-jitsu lesson business. I like come to people's houses and do jiu-jitsu for them. I have mats and everything, and yeah, it's a whole other thing that I do. It's in the DFW area. If you're interested, yeah. But this channel really doesn't have anything to do with that. We've got all kinds of stuff we want to talk to you guys about today, which is the fallout from UFC 300. Okay, so we've got a lot of things that we want to talk about in this video, so I'm going to get to it. This is not going to be like a play-by-play where I cover every fight and I talk about everything. I just want to talk about the things that really stood out to me from this event. And the first thing that I want to start off with, I really want to talk about the main event, but first, I feel like this is getting no attention, and I want to give a shout out to Aljamain Sterling. Not that he needs a shout out from someone who has less of a profile than he does, you know, me. But, man, I got to tell you, that fight was super impressive. There's a lot of people talking down about what he did in that fight, and it was kind of a boring fight, and blah blah blah. Man, none of that stuff matters. He went in there against number 8 in the world, a really well-respected guy in Calvin Kattar, and he beat him up. Man, he controlled that fight. I mean, it's not like Calvin Kattar came out and his face was all messed up or anything, but it was very clear who won that fight. And not only that, but we had that awesome moment where he went for kind of a lift and it looked like he was going to do like the pile driver from WWE, and you're like, oh my gosh. And instead he turned it into a power bomb from WWE. I mean, this is an incredible moment. For Aljamain Sterling, this is a great way to solidify his place in the featherweight division and start moving up those ranks, start getting some fights. Not with guys just in the top 10, but maybe some of those top 5 fighters. So I can't wait to see what he's going to do. I think it creates some real interesting matchups. He looked good. He didn't look super big to me, but he looked strong in that division. And there's not that many guys that have done that to Calvin Kattar, and I think that has to do more with who he's fought more so than the quality of wrestlers at featherweight right now. So he's fought predominantly strikers. He's looked great, but against a grappler in Aljamain Sterling, he just didn't have an answer this time. So I'm excited to see where this goes. Next thing I want to talk to you guys about. The next fight is actually the main event. I just want to skip right to it. This is the one that I want to talk about. Alex Pereira versus Jamal Hill was not a long fight. It reminds me of, there's a scene in the movie The Avengers where, you know, Loki's like, I will lead your forces in glorious battle, talking about Thanos' forces, and he's talking to like one of Thanos' like henchmen. And he goes, you're going to lead them in a glorious battle against the meager might of Earth. And he says, glorious, not lengthy. And that was this fight. It was glorious, but not lengthy. And so it was pretty interesting to see. There's a low shot. There was a shot to the groin that was done on the part of Jamal Hill to Alex Pereira. And it was funny because Herb Dean kind of comes in. He's getting ready to stop the fight. And Pereira like, no. Boom! And just gets that sweet knockout. It was beautiful. It was like he had the read and he was like, no, I've got his timing down. I know exactly what's going to happen. Don't mess this up by stopping me. I've got this. So, fantastic fight. Not long, but super interesting. I can't wait to see how he does against some of the other guys. He's fought, again, predominantly strikers. And so I'm really interested to see how he does against the grappler. There's not a lot of those at light heavyweight, but there's a guy in Ankalaev who I think has the skill set to really create an upset here against Pereira. So I'm real interested to see how this goes. I think it creates some interesting matchups in the light heavyweight division, and light heavyweight has been an exciting division. It's not always, it's funny because during the John Jones era, it felt like, man, there were so many great guys in there. And as soon as John Jones kind of dropped off the scene, it felt like we had lost a step a little bit in the light heavyweight division. So I'm interested to see how everyone steps up, how everyone responds to a dominant guy like Pereira, and we'll find out together, I guess. The next fight I want to talk about, man, we got to shout out Kayla Harrison. She looked absolutely incredible. Went in there. I mean, in my preview video for it, I was talking about how I didn't see how she could make weight. She was in the Olympics at 170 pounds. She was in the PFL at 155 pounds. I have no idea how she made weight. You know, she had both her arms, so she didn't have to chop anything off. So she goes in there, she just completely dominates Holly Holm. I think Holly Holm made some strategic errors. She's had some good takedowns and shown really good groundwork in other fights. This was not the fight to do that. This was not the time to do that. She went in, got controlled, got submitted. Man, not much more to say. Kayla Harrison looked incredibly dominant in that fight. Probably my favorite fight of the night was Yuri Prochazka versus Rakic. I thought it was a great fight. Excuse me, Rakic. However you say his name. Okay, I thought it was a fantastic fight. I really thought Rakic looked so impressive in there. Man, he was hitting those leg kicks. He was keeping that distance. He was making it a fight that was really difficult for Yuri. I think that Yuri did exactly what he needed to do. He made it a dirty fight. He made it a gritty fight. He came in after him. He made it a really difficult time. Yuri did exactly what Yuri does. Like I said before, he's got kind of that weird style about him where he's doing all kinds of crazy things. And man, he made it work for him. It was a tough one to watch because I was like, man, we're going to see an upset. This is going to be great. How good for Rakic in his career. And then, no, Yuri just shut him down. Shut it down, okay? The leg kicks looked great. I think that is showing that this is going to be a very difficult thing for Yuri to overcome in other fights in his career. I think other guys are going to be able to maintain that distance. They're going to be able to pick him apart with leg kicks. And that's part of the problem with a wide open style like his. Now then again, he could shore up that weakness. He can make it so that that's not a thing that happens to him so much anymore. I mean, if you watch the Benson Henderson fight with Nate Diaz from back in the day, lightweight championship fight, Nate Diaz got totally destroyed with leg kicks in that fight. I didn't really see that happen too much in Nate's career after that. It wasn't like everyone was walking around leg kicking him to death. So fighters can learn from those kinds of things and they can move on, but I guess we'll see what happens. We'll see how he adapts moving forward. Okay, we also got to talk about, and I think it's okay to use these terms. We got to talk about the Bo Nickal fight. And when I say it's okay to talk about it in these terms, what I mean is it wasn't his best performance ever. I think it's great to have a performance. I mean, he even was showing like all this contrition afterward, like, oh, I should have done better. Oh, it could have been great. You know, he knows that it wasn't the best performance. He knows he didn't come out and burn the world down. You know, he won the fight. That's the important thing. He got the win. Another finish on his record. Here's the problem: is eventually you run out of guys that you can run through. You know, that took a longer time for that to happen to Chimaev. He fought the very tough Gilbert Burns, couldn't finish Burns, but had a great fight in there. But he looked impressive while doing it. This is interesting because it's not like Cody Brundage was knocking Bo Nickal all over the octagon, but what he did made Bo look not very good. It looked like Bo didn't like getting hit. Now, I realize that's a silly thing to say, like who likes getting hit? But what I mean is, it looked like he was afraid of what would happen if he got caught. And so I don't know what's going on there. Obviously, the smart way to fight is not to get your hand, like someone else's hands, put on your face. But yeah, it didn't look the best I've ever seen. Right now, Bo Nickal's a guy who's looked incredibly impressive. This is another step up in competition for him. It felt like, even though it was a step up in competition, it still feels like they were essentially feeding him someone so that he could get a finish. And, you know, that's what he did. It just didn't look like it normally does. Now, to be fair, he's been getting people out and around, you know, and it took him two, you know, maybe he wanted some more octagon time. Maybe he felt more comfortable doing that because he was getting stormed at the beginning. Who knows? Who can say? With Arman Tsarukyan versus Charles Oliveira, this was one that, man, I didn't see the fight going that way. Arman took the fight in the most dangerous place for him. He kept taking Oliveira down, and he controlled him. He made sure that he was on top. He made sure that he was throwing those punches, and he kept out of trouble. Now, Oliveira got close with a couple of chokes. Okay, that guillotine choke in the first round. He had that Darce set up in the third. And I've seen a lot of people like, oh, if Charles would have just squeezed harder on that. If he would have just... No, that's not how the Darce works. You see, he had the Darce, but what happened was Arman had gone flat on his belly. Okay, what you need to have with the Darce choke is your guy turn to the side so you can really get that hook in deep and then start to squeeze. Okay, it's at that point that you can get the squeeze in. And the squeeze is not just with my arms. I'm also bringing my shoulders back and I'm putting my weight by leaning on the guy. And so because he couldn't turn him, when Arman went stomach down, there was no way that choke was happening. What's funny is, as I was watching it, I thought that it was, for whatever reason, I get confused sometimes. Like I've mentioned before, I'm a jiu-jitsu brown belt. But sometimes I get confused on my Darce choke, which is the one I go for all the time, and the anaconda choke, which I never go for. So when I see someone do an anaconda choke, sometimes I think it's a Darce just because of how it's set up. It looks very similar. It's not the same thing, and it's pretty obvious when I'm doing it. I know what I'm doing. When I see someone else do it, It's not really something I see very often. I don't see a lot of people go for Darce chokes anymore. Okay, and so when I saw it, I thought, man, he's going for an anaconda choke. He needs to roll him. I didn't realize it was actually a Darce, and he needed to just knock him to the side. In either case, Arman Tsarukyan did a great job defending, went belly down, not getting turned, not getting submitted. I honestly thought that it would have been a better idea for Charles to go for like a Peruvian necktie. But I mean, this is the guy who has the most submission finishes in UFC history, and I'm just a brown belt. So I don't really have room to comment or criticize or talk about what he should have done in the fight. You know, it might not have been the opportunity that he would have had. Okay, maybe he goes for that. Arman gets on top and pounds him out. Who knows? Okay, maybe he goes for a guillotine or he goes for a Peruvian necktie. It doesn't work out. And he knew that that was a low percentage submission for him. He knows that that's not one that he finishes very often. Who can say? But I think that this is one of those fights where people will look back and just go, man, I think that was a breakout performance for Arman Tsarukyan. I'm really interested. I personally want to see him fight against Islam Makhachev. I think that he presents a lot of interesting problems. I think he presents a problem in the takedown. I think he presents a problem in the stand-up. Islam is kind of at that next level where you just don't really know if someone is going to be able to step up in that level of competition to be able to be very competitive with him. So we'll all find out if that fight comes about. I think Islam's next fight is against Dustin Poirier, which I find interesting. Another great fight that I was kind of surprised by was the Yan Xiaonan fight. I did not think for a second that she had a chance against Zhang Weili, but there she was, doing great, controlling. She even won a round, I thought. Zhang looked way off. It looked like after can we talk about the crazy thing that happened? Like, this fight should have been stopped after the first round. She had the rear naked choke. Yan Xiaonan clearly went unconscious. She was completely out. And then all of a sudden, she wakes up, the round's over, she goes back to her corner, we're all fine. I'm like, what the heck, man? Someone gets knocked out and wakes up, you're not going to put them back in their corner and let them come out for the next round. You're going to stop that fight. So I thought it was absolutely ridiculous. Obviously, she showed that she could survive. She did great. I mean, the next round she got beaten up like crazy, with Zhang taking her back and then pounding, the stuffing out of her head. And it was just like, oh my gosh. But she won the third round, had a good performance. It creates some interesting topics moving forward in terms of like who is the next person in line. Personally, I'd like to see Tatiana Suarez in there. I think that she's got the skill set to beat the champ and to do so decisively, but we'll see. We'll see how it all turns out. We're all going to find out. That's why they have people who make the fights. I don't know if that's the next thing they're going to look to do. To me, it was kind of a strange fight. It almost, I don't know. It was kind of a weird one. Not at all how I expected it to go, but a good fight nonetheless. The fight of the night and the performance of the night bonus went to Max Holloway and Justin Gaethje. It was an incredible fight. Me personally, I kind of preferred the Yuri fight, but that's just me. It was a knockdown, drag out. It was exactly what we expected from two guys who've got so many bonuses. I believe Max Holloway has now, actually I think he has 12 bonuses now, and I'm pretty sure that this means Justin Gaethje has 13 post-fight bonuses. They went out there. Justin was throwing leg kicks. He was making hamburger meat out of Max's legs, and it still wasn't enough to stop Max. Max just kept marching forward, kept throwing those punches. Okay, and Max is difficult. As soon as he finds his range and as soon as he starts getting into a rhythm and he can start hitting you without getting hit, it's really tough to stop him. That was a great thing that Justin was doing, using those leg kicks. That was something that actually that brings me back to what we were talking about earlier with the Yuri Prochazka fight. Sometimes guys have this little bit of a weakness where they get caught in the legs with leg kicks, and there's a weakness in their game that they can shore up. Okay, Max in his fight with Alexander Volkanovski, he got eaten up with those leg kicks in the past. So maybe this is him advancing as a fighter. Maybe this is him learning as a fighter. Maybe this is him growing up as a fighter. But all that to say, Max Holloway looked incredible. Max Holloway looked amazing, and Max got to do his signature "fight me right here." And when he did that "fight me right here," he knocked him out. He put him out. He put him down. It was nasty. So it was one of those fights that won't be forgotten anytime soon. That's one that people are going to go back and watch again and again and again. And as soon as it shows up on ESPN Plus, I'm going to watch it again because I thought it was a fantastic fight. If you guys didn't get a chance to see it, this event was absolutely incredible. It should be up on ESPN Plus a week from Monday, I believe. if you have an ESPN Plus membership. That's the good thing about UFC pay-per-views is if you miss them, but you have a subscription to ESPN Plus, you'll still be able to watch them just a couple weeks later. So you'll see the results and everything. There's no way to avoid spoilers in the world that we live in anymore. And so you'll probably know how all the fights go, but you'll get a chance to watch them. So it's pretty cool. All right, guys, thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed my breakdown. I hope you enjoy this channel. We're going to be talking about some more things. I really do want to show a video soon where I break down exactly what Arman Tsarukyan did right in terms of defending that choke. Want to talk through the logic of kind of how some of these attacks work. So look forward to those in this channel. We're going to do another Why This Fight Matters for our next UFC coming up. And I look forward to hearing from you guys. Like, share, subscribe, all those fun things. And thank you to my loyal subscribers. Both of you have made the world a better place by subscribing to this channel. Thanks. I'll see you guys next time.